That being said, there is something you must know about crypto and everything else. Okay, it works in cycles, and the same things happen over and over again. Today, we'll hear from one of the best people who knows about this. The person in question is a quantitative analyst named Ben Cowan. He has all of this information and has correctly identified every single Bitcoin cycle in the past. To let us know today exactly what we can expect going forward, along with a very clear timeline for everything. This is true for Bitcoin, XRP, and any other altcoins you have in your account right now. You should watch this video all the way through if you have cryptocurrency. Delete that like button completely so that everyone can see this movie. Now let's start. To begin, let us talk about the US economy and the big picture. First, let's listen to what he has to say. Their goal of 2%. Things look like they are going in the right direction right now. The main number for inflation is 2.92%. And if you zoom in, you can see that it's slowly going down. This is the summer of an election year. Rates are expected to go down in September. I think the rate will only be cut by 25 basis points. Rate cuts of 50 basis points don't happen very often unless the economy is really bad. However, if you look back to, say, the 1970s, you'll see a time when inflation dropped just below 3% in the summer of an election year. After that, it began to speed up again. That's why the Fed will try not to do that again. Okay, that must not happen again. We don't want to go through it. One more wave of price increases. On the other hand, you have the question of whether they could stay too high for too long. In 1949, there was a short time of deflation because they kept interest rates too low for too long. This happened in the 1940s. So when we talk about, say, can the Fed pull off a soft landing, the main question is whether they can cut rates fast enough to avoid deflation. Also, will they be able to wait long enough to avoid another round of inflation? And of course, the jobless rate is something else they're trying to get right. And this place's jobless rate is beginning to rise. Now that it's in a non-linear phase, it looks like it's starting to move up a bit faster. As of now, the unemployment number is still pretty low, 4.3% to be exact, and it has been lower in the past. That's still not very high. In the end, this is what the Fed, in short, the big picture looks pretty good, but there are a few trends that are cause for concern. Of course, like Japan's debt. Everyone is very worried about this issue because the Japanese recently raised interest rates for the first time in a very long time. This is crazy because Japan's debt to GDP ratio is over 260%, which is higher than any other developed country in the world with a multi-trillion-dollar GDP. So if they keep going in this direction, it will be very bad for the US stock market, the Chinese stock market, the Thai stock market, and so on. As we've already seen, they'll have a lot of problems. Since you asked that question, it's very hard to say for sure where the economy will go. But the general jobless rate is something we can look at. Those numbers have been going in a very steady direction and are good. To be fair, wages are pretty good right now. We do have lower inflation, which I think everyone is happy about based on their own values. And of course, the Fed is going to lower rates, most likely by 25 basis points, as we've heard here. All of these things will make the markets more open and capital rich. That's something to look forward to. Now, when will this start to work? That is, in fact, when we'll really feel this in the markets going up in 2025. That's what we need to keep an eye on over the next few months. But right now, there's a lot in the crypto area that we need to pay attention to. Pay attention. Now, the same thing is happening again. We're going to look at the Bitcoin picture and show you the patterns that have been there in the past. This is the really cool stuff. That's why we make money here. So pay close attention here. In the fourth quarter of the year after the halves, right? It took place in 2013. You can see it in 2017 and in the fourth quarter of 2021. And every cycle, well, maybe not every cycle, but at least the last two, about 1 to 2 years into the cycle, there's talk about whether we'll have a left translated peak, which means that the peak comes much earlier in the cycle than people think. When that conversation came up back here in March 2024, it was just as hot as it was in June 2019. You can see that both rises were over 300% or around 350%. People then talked about a left transform cycle where the peak happens a lot earlier. However, one thing I've talked a lot about is what if the 4-year cycle is still in place, but the rate cut part of the cycle happens later than planned? How would that affect crypto? In 2019, there was a sort of very quick growth followed by about 6 months of lower highs and lower lows, and then finally breaking out of it. This year, it won't happen in the year before the halving was done. It seems like the same thing took place, right? A lot of us get excited when we hear that Bitcoin is going to reach a left translated peak and go much higher than people think, much sooner than they think. This seems to be occurring again and again in history. After a while, the market goes away and people don't understand why. I believe it is going in a very, very similar direction. You can use a number of different scales or measures to look at it. Among other things, one of the things we saw happen was in 2019. Once more, let's leave out the pandemic crash for now. Okay, let's say that hard landing didn't happen. At that time, Bitcoin reached its highest point and then went down for about 6 months. It had been about 25 weeks. We've already gone down for about 23 weeks if you start in March 2024. Okay, it's possible to see that a lot of this trend has been played out. It seems like this time is different, but I think that's because we're so far ahead of where we usually are. In case you were wondering, a lot of other things happened the same way. In 2019, for example, there was a time when gold broke out if you put a gold overlay on the Bitcoin picture. And when it broke out, it marked the mid-cycle top for Bitcoin. After that, it went down for about 6 to 9 months. This cycle had the same thing happen, right? When gold broke out in March, it was pretty much the middle of the cycle's top. A lot of this seems to be going the same way. One way to see this that I think everyone can understand is to look at Bitcoin's return on investment from its low point in 2022 and compare it to, say, similar low points in 2018 and 2014. You can see that Bitcoin is pretty much right where it has always been at this point in the cycle. You can see that it's still higher than where it is now if you measure it from the peak. During the last 2 cycles, Bitcoin was still about 45% below its all-time high when measured from the peak. It is still about 45% below its all-time high now. Now I want to draw your attention to the things that are alike. Take a look at the last cycle, which is this line, and the cycle before that. Before the rate cuts in 2019, Bitcoin was way ahead of itself. After the cuts, Bitcoin kind of went back to how it was. If you look at this cycle next to the last one, you could say that a lot of the same things are happening or have happened. Okay, it goes too far, and then it mean reverts in the end. I believe there is a lot of proof that this cycle isn't that different after all. Just think that the fact that Bitcoin is so popular is a part of it. It seems like altcoins are moving back to Bitcoin for a longer time than it did last time. I believe this is because of monetary policy. Therefore, we can see that the end of the year 2025 will be very positive for Bitcoin. At the same time, altcoins will be running very soon after. All of you should be really excited about this because it pretty much fits with the Fed's monetary strategy. From my point of view, it was about the middle of 2025, but I'm also ready for the end of 2025. That being said, I do think that the Bitcoin bull run will reach its peak between the 6th and 12th months of the year. Yes, and the same goes for XRP. From my point of view, we're definitely going well above the previous all-time highs for XRP during that time. This is especially true when you consider all the huge news we've had recently and the fact that we now have a clear description of what XRP is, which is not a security. If that makes you guys happy, give Gary Gensler a middle finger. In related news, there is still a trading contest going on for XRP. If you use my link below to trade on Margix, you can trade any cryptocurrency, including Bitcoin, Casper, XRP, and more. If you enter, you'll be put into a huge prize pool that keeps growing where you can win a lot of XRP. With that out of the way, the market has some really great chances right now. First, I want to let you know that I just started a short position on Caspa. You guys can do it too if you want to. I bought it at the price range of about 18 cents per coin this morning. But you can also open short positions on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a few other things that are also great chances right now. You might be asking why I'm not going long on XRP right now. The reason is that from a macro point of view, we're likely to have another correction, which is backed up by our friend's recent analysis of Bitcoin charts. Most likely, a good number of altcoins will lose value, and I think XRP will repeat its high point. The price is between 52 and 48 cents, and I'm getting ready to open another short position on XRP very soon. If you want to know right away when I open these trades, the first thing you should do is sign up for Margix. All of your